Let's bring in Michael Graham and Katie Glueck in our Washington bureau. Michael is creative director at MediaDC, and Katie is a senior political correspondent for McClatchy, D.C. All right, a lot to get to, and I want to start off by asking you both this question. What are the threads you're seeing in the response to this story so far? Katie, let me start with you.
Sure, great to be with you. What I think is significant about what is developing as we speak is that in contrast to other controversies that the White House has confronted, this time around we really are seeing more Republicans being willing to openly question the accounts coming out of the White House, or at a minimum saying that they want more answers. And you're seeing that from people who maybe typically do tend to be a little bit more in lockstep with the White House line. And so, you know, as we speak, we are seeing Republicans coming out saying that they want more answers and being pretty open about why they feel that this report is troubling in a way that we don't always see in other Washington controversies.
What about you, Michael?
Well, when you can hear the screams of the people who were thrown under the bus last week, it reminds you not to step out in front of the moving vehicle this week. So Republicans have already seen how stories change, how there's no, you just can't count on the information that you're getting. And so it's all wait and see. I also do think, and I know that there are Trump supporters who want this to be said, we've seen stories in the past where people jump to conclusions, the worst case scenario, because there are a lot of people in the press who don't like Trump. And so we may find out more about this story. I'm not saying it's true, not true. I'm just simply saying that should be added to the conversation. But at the same time, I have yet to hear from a single Republican. I was talking to a Republican activist right before he came on the set. And I said, do you have any doubt that Donald Trump would do this? And nobody is denying that, and that's a problem.
Yeah. What did each of you hear in Senator Bob Corker's comment that the White House is in, quote, a downward spiral right now? Katie, let me start with you.
Sure. I mean, that was a very pointed remark from someone who in the past has had a very good relationship with the White House. You know, if you recall, of course, he was someone who at one point was discussed as in the running for a top administration post. And so certainly significant to have a Republican lawmaker from a conservative state come out there and offer that pretty blunt assessment of where he sees the White House in terms of the situation they're dealing with right now. And so I think the key to watch there is how many other Republicans come out and are willing to sort of voice some more of that skepticism.
Yeah, Michael, what do you think? That was a pretty harsh assessment there.
It's not nearly as harsh as the assessments that our reporters at the Weekly Standard and the Washington Examiner are getting off the record. They come back from Capitol Hill and their eyebrows are on fire. Republicans are terrified because nobody knows what to, I mean, think about this. Somewhere there is an intelligence professional who's supposed to take this information to the President of the United States who wonders, should I give this information to the President of the United States? Because you don't know what the guy is going to do with it. You can talk about the staff and flipping the staff. Everybody knows where the problem starts, and it starts behind the desk in the Oval Office.
So on that point, let's put up this quote from a follow-up story Politico published Monday night. Quote, one advisor who often speaks to the president said the conversation was likely freewheeling in the Oval Office, and he probably wanted to impress the officials. So, Michael, you touched on this a moment ago, but where does this incident fit into other off-script moments that we have seen?
This is class. I mean, once again, nobody has a problem believing it. Let me tell you, go back and tell Vlad, I got this covered. I got this amazing intel. And somewhere in the Middle East, in Israel or Jordan, someone's going, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. And the United States is going to have to deal with this because whatever that source was and whatever that intelligence plan was and whatever flow information we have, that country's not going to keep giving it to us. That would be crazy. And it goes back to them having the same problem that a lot of Americans have right now. Is Donald Trump a responsible enough person to handle this information?
Yeah, Katie, as several probes move forward into Russian election interference and possible collusion between Trump associates and Russia, what questions do you think this story adds?
Well, it's the latest fuel to this broader fire that kind of continues to engulf the White House as it relates to Russia. This is an issue that just has not gone away for the White House, for this administration. It's something that, of course, upsets many of the Trump administration's allies. And in fact, many people on Capitol Hill, they feel that every time that they are making progress legislatively or politically, there is another shoe to drop as it relates to these investigations and then now reports of this conversation. So, you know, certainly and Ed spoke to this earlier, this might be separate from the investigations that are ongoing, but it does get back to that bigger question of contacts with Russia, the optics of that, which has continued to be a persistent political problem for the White House so far.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, it would seem there would be an addition of smoke to this situation. Not sure if there's fire, like you and I have talked about so many times before on this program. However, it would seem at this point, when you saw the National Security Advisor out there in that very hastily thrown together, it was not even a Q&A session. You can't even call it a press conference, but just that very brief statement after he'd already given one written statement, but punctuating that with an on-camera appearance, it would certainly seem to add some more smoke.
And see, I actually disagree. If anything, this feeds the narrative that Donald Trump is not in a fair, your choice is sinister or stupid. I'm not betting on sinister. If you are really in collusion with Russians, you're not doing this out in the open. But Donald Trump couldn't collude a bunch of, teenage boys to surf internet porn. I mean, this is just, he is there. He is Trump. And I think this really it adds another brick to the wall of whatever Trump was doing, he was not up to anything nefarious. Was he having meetings, or did he hire people who had crummy connections? Sure. What were the Russians doing in the Oval Office to begin with? We should be punishing them for interfering with our election, regardless of how it came out. But that's not Trump. Trump is transparently Trump. And so that's why I fall on the side of not nefarious.
All right. Well, let's turn to this possible White House senior staff shakeup. Here's what Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett reported on Monday.
The first thing our audience needs to know is since Inauguration Day, talk of staff shakeups, rivalries, intrigue has been constant here at the White House. And at one time or another, White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus was mentioned as someone who could get fired. So could White House counsel Don McGahn and senior strategist Steve Bannon. And all are still here. And yet, this time it does feel more real. The president's frustrations about the direction of his administration are real, and he's considering staff shakeups of a significant magnitude. What that really means this week, probably, though, is Sean Spicer and the communications director, Mike Dubke, could be the ones under the most scrutiny. Why? Because there is a pervasive sense at this White House that though President Trump set the firing of James Comey, the former FBI director, in motion in an awkward way, his communication staff compounded that, made matters worse as the week went on. And if those two figures, Sean Spicer and Mike Dubke, don't convince the president this week that they can solve the problems that they in part created for this White House, they may find themselves on the outside looking in.
So, Katie, help us understand the implications of this beyond palace intrigue. Why should the American people care about this potential shakeup?
Sure. Well, and just quickly to a point that was just raised, of course, if these two are going to be under the microscope, then they are going to have even more ample opportunity to sort of show what they can do this week, should they choose to engage with the press again, just given how big this this story that we were just discussing is. But, in terms of the broader question of why does this palace intrigue matter to the American people, probably on a day-to-day basis, this is not the top issue that voters are thinking about. They're thinking about health care, they're thinking about taxes, they're thinking about the economy, but it does matter in terms of the direction that the White House is going in. And we know that there's different thinking and different camps within the White House who have maybe some different and competing views at times about the direction that the administration should go. So who's in charge and who's calling the shots is certainly significant on that front.
At the same time, Michael, I would imagine that Trump supporters don't care much about this kind of thing, that it doesn't make a difference at all.
Well, they want to see his results, and I think I've talked to people who've said that they're bothered by the performance of basically the team. In other words, they want to see things get done. You already had the failure of the Obamacare vote, and then they'd come back and do it again, and they were thrilled that they finally got it done, but didn't build a lot of confidence. And now you've got the tax reform plan moving forward, and does Steve Mnuchin and his team, do they have the horses who can pull this through? If President Trump gets results, his voters are going to largely be happy. But at the same time, this mishandling intelligence after the criticism that Hillary Clinton deservedly received for her behavior, I think this is one that's going to be harder to slough off for a lot of Trump supporters.
It'll be interesting to watch, because in past administrations what you'd see is pressure being applied from that briefing room podium, right, Katie, to try and exert pressure on lawmakers to come over to your side, but we haven't really seen that briefing room podium used in that way necessarily.
Sure, and certainly not tonight. No opportunity yet to really ask questions and push forward on this front. You know, certainly to the question of where are his supporters on this. I mean, there's no question that he has a rock-solid group of supporters who, and if you take a look at how this story is playing on some websites that are certainly that tend to be supportive of the administration, you'll see that so far people who tend to be supportive of him typically certainly are, but you know, for other Republican lawmakers who often are there, the fact that they are now starting to more publicly ask questions, maybe acknowledge a little bit more space, I think is significant.
All right, Michael Graham and Katie Glueck in Washington, thank you both. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.